and welcome back to the Football Chuggu Podcast. My name is Thomas Durning, and today I am joined by my co-host, Pearse McLaughlin. Hello, Pearse.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. On today's podcast, we will be reacting to last weekend's SPFL and English Premier League results, discussing all the latest transfer news from around the globe, and at the end of the podcast, Pearse will be giving a rundown of all the latest Asian football news. So coming up next, we'll be reacting to last weekend's SPFL results. So I'll just quickly go through all of them. So Rangers 4, Livingston 0, Ross County 2, St Johnstone 0, St Mirren 2, Dundee 1, Aberdeen 1, Celtic 3, Hearts 0, Kilmarnock 0, and Motherwell 2, Hibs 1. So Pearse, which match stands out to you the most from last weekend's SPFL matches?
I'm going to go with Motherwell 2, Hibernian 1, just because that's now 2 games out of 2 that have now been defeated for Hibs. And obviously they've had decent results in Europe in terms of the second leg of the previous round, and in the first leg of I think it's around the third qualifying round would have done successfully well. But their domestic form has dipped and suffered as a consequence of having to juggle Europe and domestic football. And Motherwell, we weren't too sure what was going to happen following the departure of Kevin Van Veen, where the goals were going to come from. And it looks as if they've got a new man that's scored an absolute belter goal at the weekend. That it might be the new kind of man to kind of push them up the league. And obviously, Stuart Ketwell last season, when he came in as interim charge, and then he then kind of took the job on from there, and they went at the top, just missed out the top 6, and I thought they played some fantastic football at times. And hopefully that kind of kick-starts their season. But worrying times for Hibernian, because the fact is you need to get your first win on the board and just kick on from there, and they're really struggling at the moment.
Yep, that's a really good choice of match. I'm going to go with Aberdeen 1, Celtic 3. I watched that game at the weekend, and I thought, for an advert for Scottish football, I thought it was really, really good. Really competitive, entertaining game. Quite end to end at times. I really like the way Aberdeen set up. They went kind of man to man with Celtic and were really aggressive. Pushed up the park really well, and really gave Celtic a really good test. Some would say Aberdeen were quite unlucky not to get anything out of the game. I'd agree. I thought Aberdeen did really, really well. It easily could have ended up a draw, but at the end of the day, Celtic were just really, really clinical. Just in terms of like both starts for Celtic and Aberdeen, starting off with Celtic, it's quite a strange kind of feeling with Celtic. Maybe, they've got 2 wins on the board, 2 wins out of 2, but I think a lot of Celtic fans at the moment just think there's something maybe still missing in terms of the team and their team. Obviously they've lost Carl Stalfelt just during the week there to Celta Vigo. So, that's quite a big blow to Celtic because he was part of that really strong partnership with Cameron Carter-Vickers. So with Celtic, it's 2 wins out of 2, but the last couple of years we've seen Celtic really, at a really high level. I don't think Celtic are at that high level yet. It does seem to be, like they're still trying to get into gear and kind of really start kicking on this season. So that's where kind of Celtic are at the moment. And just in terms of Aberdeen, as I just said, they really played a really good match on Sunday against Celtic. They've not won yet. They've not got a win on the board yet, but from what I've seen on Sunday from Aberdeen, I think they could be in for a really good season. If they go into every game performing like that, they do look like they've got a really good team. 2 strikers, Miovski and Duke, really impressive. Barry Robson said that they're still to add more before the transfer window shuts. So, although Aberdeen haven't won a match yet, I wouldn't really. I don't think Aberdeen fans should worry. They've really, they really look like they could be in for a strong season just based on the performance that they gave on Sunday. So my game that stands out for me is Aberdeen 1, Celtic 3. So just lastly, Pearse, is there a team that has impressed you so far? I mean, it's still very early on in the season, but is there a team that's stood out to you maybe?
St Mirren. I think St Mirren went away last weekend, and they were 2-0 up within half an hour, and then Hibernian battled back to get two each, and then in the dying seconds, virtually last kick of the game, when teams had probably thrown a two-goal lead away, they'd have crumbled and probably conceded a third. But even up the other end, just persevered and got the winner. And then the weekend as well, they've won again against newly promoted Dundee, who we're all excited to see how they'll fare this season. Because I think names of like Dundee and United should be in the Premiership, but it's not a given. And I think Stephen Robinson's lost a lot of key players. You touched on it last week. They lost their goalkeeper Trevor Carson, and they've lost Declan Gallagher. So they're two big components to their team last season, but they got good value for them. And for whatever reason, they wanted to jump ship. And again, St Mirren just go from strength to strength. And they lost Curtis Main last season as well, who was a big focal point from last season. So I've been very impressed with St Mirren, and I think they could even be a surprise package of finishing in the top four this season.
Yeah, I was going to go with St Mirren as well. Obviously 2 wins out of 2. They really look like the thing with St Mirren when I look at them is that they look like they're improving year on year. Ever since Stephen Robson's come in, it just seems to me that they keep on improving. They had a really good season last season, especially the home record that was really, really strong. You were just touching on the players that have left, players that have come in. The winger that they signed in the summer, McMenamin, looks a really good player. I mean, it's still early days, obviously in the season, but St Mirren to me just they just look like a really strong outfit. They've also got the central midfielder Mark O'Hara, who's a really good player who had a really good season last season as well. So I think at the moment, St Mirren have really impressed me in terms of the start they've made, and I think they will have. I think they'll have a strong season. And I can see obviously Stephen Robson as well, who's a really good manager, and yeah, I think St Mirren are the ones to watch out for this season. So we're just lastly touching on the SPFL. So we've got Scottish teams playing in the second legs of the European ties this upcoming week. So they include Servette versus Rangers. So last week, Rangers won that tie 2-1. Hearts versus Rosenborg. So Hearts at the moment are currently 2-1 down to Rosenborg. And Luzerne versus Hibs. And at the moment, Hibs are 3-1 up in that tie. So Pearse, how do you think these teams will perform in this week's European ties?
Firstly, we'll start with the Rangers Servette. I think Rangers, they got off to an electric start, and then they miraculously somehow conceded a penalty, which is not like Rangers because they usually go without conceding penalties. But no, I thought both sides were kind of evenly matched. I thought Servette kind of grew into the game, and obviously a 2-1 lead to go away from home, that is a very tough ask to go through. But obviously with Champions League money on the line, I think Rangers will just have to weather a storm. I think they'll just have to put in a solid defensive performance, and obviously the back of the 4-0 win at the weekend, I think they'll be very confident. And like you say, the Rangers team should be getting stronger week in, week out because the amount of new players they've brought in this summer. But Servette are no mugs, and it's tough to call. I think Servette could go through, and I think Rangers could go through. But I think this game, it depends on how well the Rangers will defend. And there's obviously question marks of the two fullbacks defensively, and I think they'll need to put in a really good defensive performance in James Tavernier and Borna Barisic. And I think two of them could be suspect. for me, it's too tough to call. I think you want your Scottish team to go through, but for this one is for me it's 50-50. In terms of Hearts and Rosenborg, Hearts get a terrific result, only losing 2-1. Although there's no away goals, but at Tynecastle, we're only a 1 goal behind. You expect the crowd to be absolutely bouncing, get behind the team, be that 12th man that they know they can be. And a lot of clubs in Scotland struggle at Tynecastle because of the hostile atmosphere. And you just hope that atmosphere will see them through. And with someone like Laurie Shankland, you expect him to score goals and he could be the difference maker. And I do think Hearts will go through that. I think Hearts probably win 3-1. I just see Hearts. They've had a good start to the season as well. 4 points from opening 2 games, and I just think that that goal away from home by Shankland is invaluable, and I do think it will be enough to see them through. Touching on Hibs away from Luzerne, I watched the game last week. Hibs brilliant on the counter attack, caused Luzerne so many problems. But Luzerne themselves hit the woodwork a good few times, so that game could have been a lot closer. Could have been 3-2, 3-3, could have been 4-3 Hibs. You never know. But like you say, we've touched on Hibs and domestically have been the total polar opposite. I think they've been absolutely abysmal in the league this season. But in Europe, they seem to find another gear. And I do think Hibs will probably lose 1-0, but I think it'll be enough to see them through. And hopefully progress in the next round. So hopefully at least 2 or 3 teams can go through into the next round for all Scottish sides.
Yep, well, I'm just going to come off the bat and say that I think all Scottish teams will progress into the next round of their European competitions. So just briefly on Servette Rangers, 2-1 to Rangers at the moment, really, really tough kind of match that'll be for Rangers going into Servette, Switzerland as well. But I just think Rangers with their European experience, I just think they'll have a bit too much for Servette. I think if Rangers get the first goal in that game, I think they'll probably end up being probably a bit comfortable in the match. But Servette, they're a really good side, and they're known for not really giving in and giving up. So I just think Rangers will just about edge through in that tie. And then Hearts versus Rosenborg. Rosenborg were 2-0 up in that match, and Hearts managed to nick a goal just in the last 10 minutes of the match, which could turn it to be a really, really important goal. So with Hearts going back to Tynecastle, all Scottish football fans know how tough a game it is for football players to go to Tynecastle away with that very tight pitch. And I do see Hearts. I think Hearts are more than capable of turning that tie around, and I do see Hearts turning it around and getting through to the next round. And Luzerne versus Hibs, what a night it was for Hibs last week. That third goal is so important, I think, for them. Gives them that 2-goal advantage. Again, the Hibs are going to Switzerland to play Luzerne away in the second leg of this tie. And I just think Hibs will just about get through it. They've had you have touched on the fact they've had a poor start to the league season, but I just think with the fact that Hibs have more days to recover, so they played on Sunday and they're going to play on the Thursday for this match, and I think just the fact that they've got more days to recover, I think that will do them in good stead. And I think Hibs will manage to get through that, and if they do, they'll end up playing English Premier League side Aston Villa, which would be an absolutely cracking match to watch. So, I think all Scottish teams who are playing in Europe this season will progress to the next round. So we will now move on to reacting to last weekend's English Premier League matches. So the English Premier League kicked off their season last weekend, and the first set of results finished: Burnley 0, Manchester City 3, Arsenal 2, Nottingham Forest 1, Bournemouth 1, West Ham 1. Everton 0, Fulham 1. Brighton 4, Luton Town 1. Sheffield United 0, Crystal Palace 1. Newcastle 5, Aston Villa 1. Brentford 2, Tottenham 2. Chelsea 1, Liverpool 1. And finally, Man United 1, Wolves 0. So, Pearse, which match from the first weekend of the Premier League stood out to you?
It's got to be the Newcastle Aston Villa. I knew it would be high scoring, but I didn't think it was one-sided as it was. But like you say, St James's Park just has an electric atmosphere, and Eddie Howe's side just goes from strength to strength. And Unai Emery's side has built a formidable force that will compete in Europe this season and in the Premier League top half. But Newcastle absolutely blew them away. I thought the midfield of Joe Linton, Guimaraes, and Sandro Tonali was just a breath of fresh air. They're just so energetic. The team, high pressing, high energy, and high quality. They make the right decisions, and it was just wave after wave of attack for both sides. But Aston Villa just could not handle them. And obviously, debut goal as well for Harvey Barnes and Sandro Tonali, which is good for their confidence. And you can see that this season, Newcastle, you should not be writing them off for the top four. I think they can go up there and compete again. And I think the Champions League, they will cause teams severe problems at St James's Park. Maybe not away from home, but in that atmosphere, some sides will crumble. Depends on who they get in the group stage. But for the Premier League, I think that is a statement. That is a statement victory in the opening weekend, because you've seen them last season. They blew away Tottenham towards the back end of last season. But to get your first win on the board in that manner against that side, and it was two top managers against each other, and Eddie Howe just had Unai Emery's number, and that, for me, that is the standout fixture of the opening weekend of the Barclays Premier League.
Yep, I totally agree. That's my match as well. I was actually, before this match, I watched this match just before, but before the match, I was actually really looking forward to it. I thought it'd be a really close, tight match. Both teams have had a really good summer in terms of signings, and both teams finished the season really strongly last season. But Newcastle just totally blew Aston Villa away. That home crowd, as you were touching on it there, that home crowd for Newcastle is just going to be so big for them this season. That's going to be such a tough place to go to. Champions League nights there, I think, are going to be amazing. I could see them getting some really famous results in the Champions League this season. I've got to touch on Sandro Tonali, who I thought was absolutely amazing at the weekend. Obviously scored his debut, scored the first goal in the match, but he just looked so calm, and he looked like he'd played for Newcastle for years. He was just so influential in the game. I think Newcastle fans have really took to him. So yeah, what a start for Newcastle. And for Aston Villa, obviously it's not. I don't think they should panic, but I felt that they really didn't help themselves at the weekend. They played such a high line, and they didn't really help themselves with that. And I just felt Newcastle found it very easy to get in behind and score at least 5. They scored 5 goals, and it could even been more, to be honest. And they lost Tyrone Mings during the match as well, Aston Villa, which looks like a really bad injury. And it looks like he could be out for a very long time, which is a really big blow to them. But it's very rare to see Unai Emery getting beat by quite a big scoreline like that. But Aston Villa, I don't think should panic. Obviously it's just the first game of the season. I'm sure they'll bounce back, and they have a positive to take out of this match in terms of Moussa Diaby, who also scored, but I thought he was really, really good in the match. He looks like he's going to be a really good player for Aston Villa this season. And yeah, that's my standout match. But I just want to briefly touch on the Man United Wolves match, which was played last night. Wolves, who have had a really, really tough summer, they've lost their manager, they've lost their lost lost important players. But I thought Wolves were absolutely amazing last night. Gary O'Neill's first match in charge. He's only been there a few days. But I thought Wolves were absolutely brilliant last night, and in my opinion, should have taken something. They should have had at least a point coming out of that match. And they should have had a penalty in the end, which the referees did admit that it should have been a penalty, and they got it wrong. So yeah, just wanted to briefly touch on the Man United Wolves match. And yeah, obviously that's the first weekend of the Premier League, and we'll discuss it more. The next match is coming up next week. So coming up next, we'll be discussing all the latest transfer news from around the globe. So it has been a very busy week of transfer news, and we will start by discussing Harry Kane's move to Bayern Munich. So on Saturday, 12th of August, Bayern Munich announced that they had signed Harry Kane on a 4-year contract. So the cost of this move was £86.4 million plus add-ons, and Kane leaves Tottenham as our all-time top scorer with 280 goals and 435 appearances. So Pearse, what is your reaction to Harry Kane leaving Tottenham to join Bayern Munich?
Yeah, we've touched it briefly on this podcast the last probably say month or so. You feel this one's been in the works for a while. And finally, the two sides have come to an agreement in terms of transfer fee that Daniel Levy sees suffice for the England captain, who only had a year left in his deal, and he had no intention of signing that new deal. But obviously, his wife is due to have a baby this week as well. And obviously, like you say, you said it last week in the podcast that he's never usually one to move after the Premier League season has started. So he kind of wanted to get it just kind of happened relatively quickly in terms of over the weekend. And he was even able to play a part in their defeat in the Super Cup against RB Leipzig. But no, I'm delighted for him. I think it's a phenomenal signing. You're signing probably arguably one of the best strikers in world football at the current moment. Between him and Erling Haaland, I think the two of them are the two best strikers. But I do think Haaland is just a machine. But I do think Harry Kane has got more to his game in terms of bringing people into play. And you've seen he scored 30 Premier League goals last season in a poor Tottenham side. And I just think he leaves Tottenham a massive legacy. And I do think like the Premier League record, that's not really an incentive thing. You've always seen that he wants to play at the highest level. Tottenham are under a rebuilding process, and that money will go towards rebuilding their back line and having Ange Postecoglou have a potential of a successful season. But I do think Harry Kane is moving on and going up to an elite level club, which Bayern Munich are, and they compete Bundesligas every season, German Cups, and obviously the last stage of the Champions League. So I think that's incentive. I think he could potentially win 2 trophies a season, as well as the Golden Boot in the Bundesliga. And I do think once he gets that bedded in process with his teammates, I do think he will score goals for fun, unlike Sadio Mane failed to do last season. That's what you thought would have happened because world-class player. But I do think this one he is the perfect Robert Lewandowski replacement. And I do think they are serious contenders for the Champions League this season. But no, thoroughly delighted, and finally happened. Yeah, that's my reaction to the news.
Yep, me and you have discussed this on this podcast for quite a few weeks now. We didn't know whether it was happening, whether it was not, and you just said it. It was quite, it kind of just came out. It went really quiet, and then all of a sudden last week it just came out of the blue, and here we are now. Harry Kane signed for Bayern Munich. I just think in terms of Harry Kane and Bayern Munich, I just think for Harry Kane it's a really, really good move for him. I think it was time for him to leave Tottenham. The thing with Harry Kane is that you were touching on it there, like he is one of the best strikers in world football. Harry Kane has to be playing at the highest level possible. He has to play. For me, he has to be playing in Champions League every season, and Bayern Munich offer that. They're a massive club. They're always at least a contender for winning the Champions League every season. You know, they do win the Bundesliga nearly every season. But I just think for Harry Kane, it's a brilliant move for him. You know, he's going to be playing with world class players as well. You know, he's going to be the main man in terms of being the striker, the new number 9, replacing Robert Lewandowski. And yeah, I just think it's a really good move for him, and I think it was time for him to leave Tottenham as well. And then in terms of Tottenham, you know, they also get money for him because they easily could have lost Harry Kane for free next season if Harry Kane decided to stay this season. So I think for Harry Kane, it's quite good of him to kind of say, like, go now and give Tottenham the money, and you know it shows Kane's love for Tottenham as well. The fact that he's willing to do that for them, and I just think for Tottenham, in my opinion, I just think they're going to leave. You know, they'll also be really, really disappointed and really, you know, they'll be gutted that Kane's left because he's quite arguably the best ever player. You know, but I think it's good for Tottenham that that's kind of out the way now. You know, it's been such a distraction for them. You know, they've got money for Harry Kane, and Postecoglou could, you know, he could use that money to even strengthen more the team. You know, in the next couple of weeks, obviously the transfer window closes in the next couple of weeks. So all in all, I just think for both parties, it's a brilliant move. You know, really excited to see Harry Kane in a Bayern Munich shirt. We did see a bit of him at the weekend. You know, it didn't go well for him. He didn't win the trophy. But you know, I think it's going to be exciting to see how Harry Kane fits into that Bayern Munich side. And yeah, really good move and really a really big piece of transfer news. So, another transfer news, it was confirmed on Monday, the 14th of August, that Chelsea had signed Brighton midfielder Moises Caicedo for a £100 million fee that could rise to a British club record of £115 million. So, Caicedo's move to Chelsea brings an end to a long transfer saga, as it was only on Friday, the 11th of August, that Liverpool had agreed a deal with Brighton to sign Caicedo for £111 million. However, in the end, Caicedo turned down Liverpool and he decided to sign for Chelsea. So, Pearse, what's your reaction to Caicedo signing for Chelsea?
Brighton again, they just find these gems and get some mad profit like that. Like in recent years, it's been Alexis McAllister, Mark Cucurella, and now Moises Caicedo for £150 million. That is ridiculous for a 21-year-old, but it just shows you how highly he is rated. And Brighton do not break their model where they don't sell the player unless it's for the right fee. And again, who will replace him at Brighton? They've got a conveyor belt of talent, and they just seem to produce year on year the perfect replacement, and they'll then sell them on. And I do think Chelsea probably didn't need him, but he really wanted Chelsea. And obviously, he does strengthen that midfield. You look at that midfield too now of potentially Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo, and that's just so solid. But it's a midfield that's worth 100 or 220 million, which is ridiculous money for a club to spend on two midfielders. But no, he's talented midfielder that he just breaks up the play. He's good going forward. He's got a bit of everything, and I do think it's what Chelsea needed. Although they do need a striker, but it makes their midfield rock solid, and you can see them potentially challenging for the top four this season with that signing.
Yep. You know, another kind of big piece of transfer news that's come out this past week. I think for Chelsea, it's a brilliant signing. You know, Caicedo who was one of the best players in the Premier League last season. You know, it's for Caicedo, it's been a really kind of long kind of few months. You know, because it was only in January that he wanted to go to Arsenal. You know, apparently, I remember he put out a statement saying that, you know, Arsenal's a club that he would really like to join, and now he's ended up at Chelsea, and nearly ended up at Liverpool as well. So it's been such a long kind of transfer saga, as I just said. But for Chelsea, it's a really good signing. You know, I could see him slot into that midfield really well. You know, I think in terms of the fee, I'm not sure if 115 million is, you know, I don't know if anyone's really worth that. You know, it's a lot of money, and you know, he's only 21, and he's now going to have that price tag on his shoulders, and he's going to have to deal with that. But you know, that Chelsea team looks really, really exciting. You know, it looks a really young team, but lots of talented players, and you know, I think Pochettino is going to be so looking forward to working with all these players and trying to get them all to gel together, and you know, keep progressing the team. And in terms of Brighton, you were just touching on it. You know, the model that they have is just unbelievable. I mean, what a situation to be in terms of Chelsea bidding for Caicedo and also Liverpool bidding for Caicedo. You know, two teams bidding over £100 million for a player. You know, that's a dream scenario for a club. You know, they've just got it spot on in terms of the recruitment and how they deal with transfers. You know, I don't know how much Brighton paid for Caicedo. I don't think it would have been a lot, but to sell him for 150 million, for a club like Brighton, it's absolutely amazing for them. And you know, they really are a great model to follow, and you know they've really got it right. And yeah, I mean they've got other players as well in that team like Matoma, who could end up moving on for lots of money. Evan Ferguson as well, the striker, who's really young and looks a really promising player. So I mean, Brighton are just in such a great position in the moment. You know, lots of money in the bank as well, and yeah, a long transfer saga that's now come to an end. With Moises Caicedo signing for Chelsea. So we also have other transfer news to bring you, and it involves Brazil captain Neymar. So PSG have agreed a deal to sell Neymar to Saudi Arabian club Al Hilal for around about 77.6 million plus add-ons. So it's not confirmed yet, but it has been reported that Neymar has completed all the paperwork and medical checks and will be unveiled as an Al Hilal player very soon. So, Pearse, what is your reaction to Neymar's impeding move to Al Hilal?
I thought if he was going to leave PSG, it would to go back to Barcelona. But just looking at some of the details of the contract, you can see why he's going to go to Al Hilal. He's going to be earning potentially £379,000 every single day, which is ridiculous money. So that works out yearly £138 million, weekly £2.65 million, hourly £15.7 thousand, and then wage per second £4.39. Wage per minute £263.28, daily £379,000, and monthly 11.5 million a month, which is ridiculous money. And this is the reason why the Saudi League will just keep getting better and better, because they're willing to just throw money at players that would potentially never even consider going to the Saudi Pro League. But like you say, it's all started from Ronaldo. He was the first big name to go there, and all the big stars are now following. And you can see there's at least 5 or 6 teams that are now building potentially super teams. And Neymar is one of the best players in the world in terms of technically his dribbling, his skills, goals, assists, and obviously I think it's a game changer, to be honest, because I think you had Ronaldo, you've got Benzema, but I think and you've got Sadio Mane. Neymar's just another one that just goes up there, like you say, Brazil captain, and you still expect him to still be the Brazil captain even though he's still going to Saudi. Because look at Ronaldo, he's still the Portuguese captain at 38 years of age. But no, I think that's an absolute ridiculous amount of money they're throwing at him. But another massive player leaving Europe to go to the Saudi Pro League, and Neymar.
Yep. So just touching on Neymar and PSG first of all. I think it was time for Neymar to leave PSG. At the time when Neymar went to PSG, it was such a massive, surprising move. I don't think anyone really expected it. But I just don't think Neymar and PSG and Neymar. I don't think it's really worked out. It's been quite a tough few years for Neymar at PSG. He's had to deal with injuries there. PSG. He's had to deal with clash of personalities in terms of Mbappe, in terms of Messi. So I think for Neymar and PSG, I think it's a good time to kind of part ways, and I think Neymar, I think it'd be good for him to kind of leave PSG, and I think PSG are at that point now where they're just kind of moving on to a new kind of a direction. Obviously Messi's left as well. But in terms of Al Hilal and Neymar, as you've just said, it's a ridiculous amount of money that Neymar's going to be getting in Saudi Arabia. But again, it's for Saudi Arabian football, it's an absolutely massive move. Neymar's one of the most famous, never mind footballers, he's one of the most famous people in the world. And for him to come to Saudi Arabian football, it's such a brilliant market move, but also a move in terms of the type of player they're going to get. Because Neymar, as you said, he is one of the best players in the world. So I mean, you were saying it as well. I mean, Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, Sadio Mane, Benzema, Kante. I could go on, but the amount of football stars, big football stars that are now in Saudi Arabia, it's incredible to see. I never thought that would happen. I always thought European kind of football level was the pinnacle for all players, and I thought all these players would stay in Europe for the rest of their career, and for them all to really end up in Saudi Arabia it's quite incredible. But I think Neymar will do well in Saudi Arabia. I think that kind of the fact that he can kind of just start again in a way. Maybe it's been quite a tough time for him PSG. And I think I think it'll turn out to be a really good move for him. So yeah, that's the end of all the transfer news. And I'm sure when we come back here next week, there's going to be more transfer news to bring you. We're coming into the last weeks now of the transfer window, so it's definitely going to heat up quite fast. So for the final part of the show, Pearse will now give his Asian football roundup.
So we're going to start off the Asian football news with some J League One action. So the weekend, Saturday, 12th of August, we had Hokkaido, Constable Sapporo 1, Sagan Tusu 1, Alvarez Nagata 2, Shonan Belmare 2, Avispa Fukuoka 2, Yokohama FC 0, Kawasaki Frontale 0, Vissel Kobe 1, FC Tokyo 2, Kyoto Sanga 0, Kawashiro Reysol 1, Ceres Osaka 1, Yokohama F Marinos 2, Gambo Osaka 1. And then on Sunday, the 13th of August, we had Sanfrecce Hiroshima 2, Urawa Red Diamonds 1, Nagoya Grampus 1, Kawashima Antlers 0. So that's leaving the table looking like this. So at the top of three, we've got Vissel Kobe, joint top with Yokohama and Marinos, both on 47 points. With Nagoya Grampus in third position on 45 points. So the top three are only separated by 2 points. Down at the bottom of the table, it's just as tight as it is at the top. We've got in 16th position, we've got Kawashiro Reysol on 18 points, Yokohama F Marinos in 17th position on 18 points, and in 18th position at the bottom of the table, we've got Shonan Belmare on 17 points. So the bottom three sides are separated by 1 point, and I could see either any that could change towards the end of the season. Either side could rotate, and it's exciting end of the season for both the top and the bottom half of the table. So moving on to the K-League One, on Saturday, 12th of August, we had Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors 1, Suwon Samsung Blue Wings 1, Gangwon FC 2, Ulsan Hyundai 0, Jeju United 3, Suwon FC 0. Sunday, the 13th of August, we had Daejeon Hana Citizen 4, SE Seoul 3, Incheon United 3, Daegu FC 1, Pohang Steelers 1, Gwangju FC 1. So it's leaving the table looking like this. At the top of the table, we've got Ulsan Hyundai on 57 points. Second position, we've got Pohang Steelers on 46th and Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors on 41. So as you see, there's starting to become a gap at the top of the table. Although Ulsan Hyundai failed to win the weekend, they're still getting an unassailable lead at this point. It's now been cut from 14 to 11 points, and Pohang Steelers are starting to show some distance between them and Jeonbuk. Down at the bottom of the table, we've got Suwon Samsung Blue Wings, rock bottom in 12th position on 19 points. Just above them, we've got Gangwon FC on 20 points. And then in 10th position, we've got Suwon FC on 23 points. So in terms of some Asian football news, Son Heung-Min, the South Korean captain, has now become the captain of Tottenham Hotspur, following the departure of England captain Harry Kane to Bayern Munich. Spurs boss Ange Postecoglou announced the captaincy in front of the whole squad in what was a touching video posted on the club's social media channels. Son is now the main man for club and country, and it is a challenge he is more than capable of handling. South Korea have announced a friendly match against Saudi Arabia, which will take place on the 12th of September. A stadium has yet to be announced. So this is a warm-up match for the upcoming Asian Games due at the turn of the year. Kawasaki Frontale have confirmed the marquee signing of veteran forward Bafétimbi Gomis. Gomis, 38, is expected to arrive in Japan next week once all his paperwork has been finalised. He joins in a 2-year deal which runs until January 31st, 2025. Bafétimbi Gomis is a household name in Asia and Europe, having starred for Lyon, St Etienne, Swansea, Marseille, Galatasaray and Al Hilal. Most recently, he got 10 goals in 28 matches last season for Galatasaray, so he will no doubt add much-needed firepower to Kawasaki Frontale's lacklustre attack. And that's all your latest Asian football news.
Thank you, Pearse. And thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of the Football Chuggu Podcast. This podcast will be available to listen to on the Football Chuggu YouTube channel and also the Football Chuggu website. Thanks for listening and see you soon.
Bye-bye.